Hello, thank you all for coming and viewing this video. What is our problem with the 20-minute neighbourhood strategy coming out of Falkirk? So this is a flyer that's going to be coming out to the people of Falkirk very shortly, funded by a really good group of people that are wanting to make sure everybody knows what's happening and to ideally reverse this strategy and stop it from restricting our movements. First of all, I'd like to just read out some of the quotes from the actual strategy that are included in this flyer. Our vision: people can live their lives without owning a car. Those who have access to a vehicle to consider giving it up or using it less. Street closures and semi-permeability roads. Remove the need for vehicle ownership. Reduce the number of private cars on the road. Shift from private cars to walking. Break traditional ownership models. Enable people to travel without the need to fuel and maintain private cars. Replace on-street parking with wider footways and new cycleways. Access to transport, including cars, on an on-demand basis, and provide people with short-term access to shared vehicles like cars. So clearly, at this point, you're thinking, "Well, I must have got something wrong here. That they can't possibly be wanting to take away our cars."
Group meetings regarding that, and it's very much a drive and strategy that is at the forefront of the national strategy, national transport strategy 2, looking at mobility as a service and how people can access, not having permanent use of a car, but a irregular use of a car for.
So not having permanent use of a car, but irregular use of a car. This is a Falkirk council meeting that happened on the 11th of April, and although this is a clip of it, you can see the full meeting online if you dig into the council website far enough.
Number of hours a day, an example. So
It's just for a number of hours a day, the use of a car.
we're very keen to speak and engage with various different car club operators to see how we can roll out that type of scenario across the Falkirk area. We don't.
So I just want to apologise for speaking through that and just run you through that again without me talking. Mobility as a service, it starts off with.
2, looking at mobility as a service and how people can access, not having permanent use of a car, but a irregular use of a car for a number of hours a day, an example. So we're very keen to speak and engage with various different car club operators to see how we can roll out that type of scenario across the Falkirk area. We don't have any specific opportunities at this point in time, but we're certainly keen to pursue that and see how we can reduce the demands of the car across the Falkirk area with car clubs and other mechanisms where people can get access to a vehicle for short periods of time.
People can get access to a vehicle for short periods of time. Interestingly enough, I think everybody usually wants to use the vehicle all at the same time: in the mornings when they're going to work and doing the school run, and in the evenings when they're coming back from work. So I think it's quite clear then that they want to take the cars away. They don't want people driving cars, or they're going to do as much as they can to stop people using and having cars. There are a number of questions that arise from that, and we'll go on to that later. But for now, what we'll look at is the BBC Panorama. This is a special they did on the 15-minute neighbourhoods, and it shows what happens in Oxford at the moment. So just watching this panorama programme about the 15-minute cities, the 20-minute cities that are coming to Falkirk.
Existing LTNs, there'll be filters
So the idea is that this reduces CO2 or emissions. But if you want to drive from that point there to the train station, you got to go there, all the way around. So not only is it going to take a lot more time, but it's actually going to increase the CO2 emissions. So I think it's clear to say that although it's probably not on the mainstream media, some parts of the UK have had some real issues with this. Even more concerning that if the BBC are saying there's something wrong or that it's not very great for people living in these areas, then we really, really do need to look at it. But just to be fair, I think they are actually being very clear about what they're looking for.
And active travel strategies are focused on transport networks, a network which currently prioritises the car, and adopt an approach to develop an active travel network which prioritises and creates spaces for walking and cycling over other modes of transport.
So what does the active travel strategy for Falkirk actually look like? Well, here it is, the beginning of it anyway, and the website where you can find it is there. We have also included a QR code on the flyer to go and look at this for yourself. This is the precise document we got all the quotes from at the beginning of this recording, and we'd like everybody to take a look at it. So just scrolling down, we can see a few areas of this and the values, and it's trying to make it sound all nice and shiny and new. Some of the interesting things on here are around the problems and solutions, and actually the lack of solutions for a strategy, in my opinion. Let's take the Falkirk district's population is older than the UK average. Promote programs that provide access to adapted cycles and e-bikes and mobility scooters. Provide more rest opportunities on walk routes. Now, anybody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't see grandmas going on the shopping trips via bike riding from Falkirk all the way up the hill to Maddiston. I can't see that happening, even on an e-bike. This is the split between the parts of Falkirk on the 20 minutes neighbourhoods. These are some of the routes that people take. These are the routes for the transformation and the active the cycle network, which is going to slow down everybody and look something like this. This is a typical existing situation. Car parking on the street. It's going to be removed, and there's going to be protective curbs. Now, where are all the people that normally park on the street going to park? Valid question, valid concern. No answers from the government, unfortunately. This continues. We park in both sides of the street. Again, removal, car club that he was talking about, where you've got access to a shared vehicle if you've got that available. And some of the other things around here are about the need to move and what the benefits and what the strategy is going to look like moving forwards. But it even talks about cars, even electric ones, release particles into the air via their brake pads and tyres. They're really, really going overboard with this, in my opinion. And later, we will see why I believe that. So, unfortunately, it hasn't got much on the options, and it doesn't have much on the simple and basic questions that any normal person would think flow from this. These can be found here. So some of the questions we've asked the government are, will any fines be implemented as part of this? Will road capacity for cars be reduced? Well, it looks like it will, definitely. What are the cost implications of this? And will that be prioritised over people struggling with the cost of living crisis in Falkirk? In the first letter from Kevin Stewart, MSP, it says that local authorities are encouraged to develop their own active travel strategies. Well, actually, I believe that it's actually part of a law that comes from Holyrood and the SNP. So what will they be spending on the implementation of 20-minute neighbourhoods? When will it be implemented? And what global temperature reduction will be the result of such a high impact reduction in mobility on our lives? And I'm not just talking about the reduction that they've got going on at the minute, because the route map here states that it goes to 2030. However, the plan is to reach net zero by 2045. So that further 15 years, what's the implementation there? What's going to go on moving forwards? What are their ideas? And the fact that they're not answering some of these questions is what's a little bit scary, because all the questions and all the responses are on my website, available to view. All the letters, they're all open, and the MSPs, Kevin Stewart and Fiona Hislop, are just not answering the questions at all. So this is another interesting part of the meeting.
To note, the local transport and active travel strategies are focused on transport networks which prioritises active and sustainable travel over a network which currently prioritises the car, and adopt an approach to develop an active travel network which prioritises and creates spaces for walking and cycling over other modes of transport. It's important to highlight that these strategies have a real change in direction The original local transport strategy was back in 2014. This is a total refresh of this. The active travel strategy itself is new to Falkirk Council. The vision for a local transport strategy is a transport system that encourages active and sustainable travel choices, creates and connects better places, and promotes well-being and community regeneration. The key values within the local transport strategy include accelerating sustainability, improving inclusion, achieving economic growth, and enhancing existing infrastructure. In terms of our active travel strategy, we wish to have a vision where communities are shaped around people with walking, wheeling, or cycling, the most popular choice for shorter everyday journeys. And the key value and guiding principles are in terms of making people first, in terms of travel, and sustainable investment. Falkirk Council has made significant investment. We have over 600 kilometres of active travel pathways across the local authority area. We've invested over £30 million in the last 25 years. This piece of work has been going on for quite a number of years now. The consultation exercise was very extensive. It commenced back in September 21.
I'm sorry, the consultation was very extensive. I've spoken now to a lot of people and nobody knows about this.
It has been working very closely with other key strategies, particularly the Scottish National Transport Strategy 2.
So it did mention there as well that the Falkirk Town Centre is already involved in this. They have done a day's exhibition, but unfortunately they will not be at present publicising any of this information, and most of it is actually already underway. I went along and just to see what was going on, and yeah, the reduction in car parking spaces is quite prominent. So here at an event for Falkirk Town Centre, very interesting stuff. So moving on then, what are the political parties saying? So this is the SNP. We will phase out the need for new petrol and diesel cars and vans by 2030, 2 years ahead of our original target. I'm not quite sure what they think they're going to replace them with, or if they are going to replace them at all. It's quite clear that electric cars have not got the shelf life of regular petrol and diesel cars, and there's issues with removing the batteries, and the batteries only last 10 years. They're extremely expensive, and there's nowhere near enough raw materials, cobalt and lithium, for example, in the world to replace all the cars we have currently. So the next question is, will we actually get a choice?
To have the choice of using active travel mechanisms rather to take with it.
So if they can't do that, will they force us to do that if we haven't
Yeah,
got a
thanks,
choice?
convener. Obviously, I welcome this step towards the ambition, such as a 20% reduction by 2030 on private vehicle kilometres. I think
You heard that right, a 20% reduction in vehicle kilometres by 2030. I don't think people will do that by choice. So now I have to move to the co-founder
One
of
of my
Greenpeace.
missions is to turn on its head the idea that carbon dioxide is a pollutant and somehow dangerous, when in fact it is the most important nutrient for all life on Earth, and without it this would be a dead planet. So I say not only is carbon dioxide good, it is essential, and it's a good thing that we are putting some more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere because it was running low before we came along. If we had definitive proof that CO2 was causing serious problems and we could prove it, don't you think they would write that down on a piece of paper somewhere so people could read it? They don't have definitive proof, period, in science. I'm a student. I am firmly of the belief that the future will show that this whole hysteria over climate change was a complete fabrication.